Okay, great. Let's talk about keyword arguments. Keyword arguments are arguments that can be placed in the argument signature. And remember, this is what we call the function arg signature that will make that are really a counterpoint to positional arguments. Now in this code, you can see that we have two positional arguments, arg and mul. Arg and mul are required, which means that we must pass two values, otherwise we run afoul of Python's signature checking. And so this should not be surprising. If we run this, we should see 50 and everything, all is right with the world. But if we wanted to change our code to make mul something that's optional, we can do so. What we can do is give it a value, and then we can choose to use it or not use it. Now what I'd like you to do is pause this video for long enough so that you can see what must be happening when you run this code. We're seeing 15 and 10. Now please pause the video, take a good hard look at what's happening, and ask yourself if line 7 gets us 15 because 5 and 3 multiplied together give us 15, then what's going on? Oh, I got to print these in the right order. Then what's going on with line 6? Why are we getting 10? Go ahead and pause the video and make sense of this yourself. Okay, so the natural conclusion is that if I call product but I don't specify mul, that somehow the value 2 is getting used. You could of course go ahead and make it extreme, and you would hopefully see, is that 1,000? I think so. You can see that what we're seeing in 200 there, mul equals 200, what we're seeing is a default value. This mul equals is specifying a default value. That's up here in the signature. That is, if we don't pass mul, where is mul? Mul is not being passed in the call on line 6. So what we're getting as a result is 1,000 because 5 times 200 is 1,000. So it's clear that if we don't specify mul, mul will get a value anyway. That is, it will get the value 200. But if we do specify mul, as we're doing on line 7, then mul is given the value 3. That's why we're getting 15. So keyword arguments are arguments that are optional and also that include a default value. The default value can be whatever we'd like. Maybe if we'd like it to be some kind of neutral thing that if they don't specify it, they'll just get the value back, we could make it 1. Whatever it is we decide to do in our program. The point of a keyword argument is that you may not need to specify it. You're not being required to specify a default value when you call it. And we can see that illustrated with the sorted function, which I hope you remember will take any sequence of values and sort them. Now, if we have integers, for example, you know that it's going to sort the integers and it'll sort them numerically. As long as we name our variables correctly. But as you also know, there's a keyword argument that's possible. Reverse equals true. And that will reverse the sort. Now it's clear that we don't need to have reverse because we've seen sorted used many times without it. We can also see that we can sometimes use it if we wish, which should indicate to you, given what we've just said about default arguments and how they're defined, here you can see we're defining the default argument. It should be pretty clear to you that if there is, and there is, a sorted function, and we're, let's say, assigning the value of seek to this seek, that there must be a default value specified in the sorted function. And what do you suppose that default value is? Well, it would have to be false, wouldn't it? Our default value for reverse must be false because Python is reading it as a Boolean. It's looking for true or false to determine whether or not to reverse the sort. And so it's doing exactly what we ask when we pass true or false. But the default should be false because the default behavior for sorted is to give us values in ascending order, that is, not reversed. So this is the point of a keyword argument. Now this gives you a great deal of flexibility in terms of how you'd like to design your function. You can, if you wish, have keyword arguments in your function. You're not required to, obviously, and when you do define it, the user's not defined to pass it, but you can use the keyword argument to specify a default value that you would like to be employed if the user doesn't pass it. Now, just as a side note, some folks have observed that if you pass two arguments to a function that has defaults, that the second argument will be assigned to the keyword name. That is, 3 gets assigned to mul, and that is true. But generally, we don't do that because we don't want to imply that this is a positional argument. We don't want to have to go look up the position and find out what it is. We like the idea of explicitly passing a named value because when you read the code, it becomes quite clear what that value is supposed to be. It's supposed to be called mul. One other side note is that positional arguments must be placed in front of keyword arguments for obvious reasons. Positional arguments do rely on the position of a value, whereas keyword arguments don't. In fact, and so you'll get an error here. And it even says non-default argument follows default argument being the keyword argument. But as you may have observed with sorted, it's possible to call sorted in multiple ways. So in these examples, you can see that I'm using the keyword arguments whenever I want them, not using when I don't want them, and putting them in whatever order I'd like. Reverse equals true, key equals myfunc, key equals myfunc, reverse equals true, or just reverse equals true, or just key equals myfunc. And by the way, myfunc is just a proposed function that I might use. It's not represented here in the code. The point I'm trying to make is that keyword arguments are optional. They can occur in any order as long as we specify the name of the keyword argument, and that's it.